Hello girls, in our last video we were talking about autism spectrum disorder. We had an overview of the autism spectrum disorder. We looked into the history of autism spectrum disorder. We also had a look on the diagnostic criteria expressed under DSM-4TR. We also correlated those explanation with the pictorial understanding of the same. So we completed up till third point in our last video. So now let's move on with the fourth point, that is social relationship, developing and maintaining friends. Normally what happens, child 1 and child 2. So here this is abnormal interpretation. So you can see the child in black is normal and the child in red is with ASD, that is autism spectrum disorder. So the child 1 approaches the child 2 with ASD, but then it's difficult to make friends. These children with ASD do not make friends. They are not able to make friends. If at all they make friends, they can't maintain the relationship. That is, if at all they made friends, the maintaining of relationship with the friends is very difficult. So for example, here is this. So the child 1 makes friendship with child 2. The child 2 might have developed friendship initially, but then hits back to the child 1 or troubles the child 1. So the maintaining of the relationship is broken down here. These things are very unintentional. The child doesn't do this intentionally. However, this is very unintentional, which this child would definitely will not know. And children if they are not pleased with something, they do not go back to those things. It's natural. So next we have the Roman number 2 here. To understand this, let's again go back to the diagnostic criteria mentioned under DSM-4TR. So we have qualitative impairment in communication as manifested by at least one of the following. So you can make out under the category A, we have 3 subcategories, 1, 2, 3. First one is impairment in social interaction, second is in communication, and third in repetitive and stereotype pattern of behavior. However, when we are talking about the same, at least 2 should be present from the subcategory 1 under A, and at least 1 each from subcategory 2 and 3 under point A. So let's now talk about the subcategorization under A. That is, second one is qualitative impairment in communication as manifested by at least one of the following. That is, delay in or total lack of development of spoken language, not accompanied by an attempt to compensate through alternative modes of communication such as gestures or mime. So if at all you had an interaction with kids, if at all you have siblings at your home who are younger to you, if at all you have cousins, if at all you have nephews and nieces whom you have seen growing, if you have that or else if you have a general understanding of how children grow, from your developmental psychology, you could make out that children start learning to talk. The babbling, all this comes by the month of 10, 11, 12. By the time they reach 1 year, they are able to communicate. They are much more able to pronounce the words. So here, the delay in talk. So you can make out also few kids are not able to speak out. They are not able to talk. And here talking of the child also depends on the environment. It is very important that children must be exposed to the environment where people are there to talk to them. So there is also the possibility there. If you look into the cases, with the case history of childhood development, you could also see that with the developing societies where parents are too busy, the child is just made to sit in front of the TV and the Cartoon Network is turned on. They try to imitate the way of talking of these cartoon characters, not the real life human beings, because they are exposed to only such things. When they are exposed to those things, they would definitely replicate the same thing. If we are developing a conversation with the child, we have a humane touch, whereas the robotic touch is given to them. There is no much you can only expect the robotic imitation from the kids. So it's natural, you can make out. So there are possibility of that. When if the parents, if the family is not giving the atmosphere for the child to communicate, that is a secondary problem. If that is a secondary problem, again you have a understanding here that the child might have a problem with developing the communication skill, but then he or she would show interest in terms of mime making faces or hand gestures. All these things must be there at least. Here the absence of that also is included. So moving on to next point, in individuals with adequate speech, marked impairment in the ability to initiate or sustain a conversation with others. So again, they do not initiate any of the conversation, any of the relationship. At this at the same point of time, if they do not initiate, also they do not try to maintain it, and it's difficult. As we had a look here in the beginning of the video, where unintentionally their behavior is taken as harmful and hurtful. So people definitely distance themselves from the child with ASD. So you can make out, if you could recollect when we spoke about paranoid personality disorder in our classes. So how people try to distance themselves from the person who is suffering from paranoid personality disorder. So it's just something like that. So that you can recall here. So next point is stereotyped and repetitive use of language or idiocentric language. So here, this is not exactly from the movies, but then you can see that in movies where someone is suffering from any of the psychological disorder, they would be keep repeating the words. They are just stuck with that particular kind of words in their minds, and they'll be just repeating on them. So that there is a chance of it. So repetitively using only one thing, one idea, one belief, that they feel that they have a strong faith in that, they just keep on doing that. So that is also there, repetitive use of that language. And lack of varied, spontaneous make-believe play or social imitative play appropriate to developmental level. Lack of varied, spontaneous make-believe play or social imitative play appropriate to developmental level. So you all know this. We all had gone through the state when we are kids around 4-5 years old. We would definitely make up our playing, we make up our stories, we decorate our dolls, we try to attach stories to things, and when we grow up, when we go to school, we try to imitate our teachers. We use a dupatta, veil, and we drape it around us and we act like a teachers. So this is all common. We make up stories and we try to put ourselves into the character. If we are playing along with the other kids, again we make up a story. I am this character, you are this character. And even if you're playing alone, you have a different explanation, you have different understanding of the play material that you have along with you. So that is there. But then with autistic children, this phenomena is missing. So we'll look into this and then continue with the pictures. So the third criteria under the point A is restricted repetitive stereotyped pattern of behavior, interest and activities as manifested by at least one of the following. Out of the 4 subdivisions, at least one should be present. Overall, the 6 symptoms must be there to classify an individual to be suffering from ASD, that is autistic spectrum disorder. So first point under repetitive and stereotype pattern of behavior, that is encompassing preoccupation with one or more stereotyped and restricted pattern of interest that is abnormal either in the intensity or focus. So here preoccupation with one or more stereotyped and restricted pattern of interest, that is abnormal either in intensity or focus. If you keep on doing one particular thing always, it's always annoying and it is abnormal. You can't do that, right? So that kind of thing is seen in them. So let's move on to the other points and let me come back for the explanation here. Apparently inflexible adherence to specific non-functional routine or rituals. Stereotyped and repetitive motor mannerisms, hand or finger flapping or twisting or complex body movements, persistent preoccupation with parts of the body. So here these individual might no, they are just preoccupied with themselves. They the last 2 points are like persistent preoccupation with parts of the objects. Maybe if they have one particular object which is very much close to them, they might be always clinged with them, glued to that. Maybe no, removing the hands, legs and hurting it, something like that. And then with the motor mannerism, stereotyped and repetitive motor mannerism, that is hand or finger flapping or twisting or complex body movements. So they involve themselves in complex body postures. They either flip their hands, twist their fingers. All these things are common. So you can see hand wringing. Now, hand wringing is one of the symptoms of the Rett disorder, which is another childhood disorder there. That is one of the severe, that hand wringing itself is no indication that the child is suffering from Rett's disorder. However, these kind of mannerism, hand wringing in the sense, you might notice this is not hand wringing, but people try to rub their nails against each other, like rubbing the nails of your left hand with the nails of your right hand, so that it will reduce your hair fall. The wringing of your hand is something of that fashion. So, but then in a very abnormal way. This you're doing it purposefully. That is an abnormal way. That is a preoccupation that you do, and non-functional routines or rituals that you always feel like doing it. So when you have a social occupation, like in the sense you try to mingle with people, when you are able to have an interaction with others, then definitely you are engaged in some other thing. But then when you're completely isolated yourself from the rest of the society, then you will try to engage yourself with your own self. So that's how you just keep yourself busy. So here you have again